Hey, what's up? It's your host, Tori, and who is ready to be petty? Welcome back to another episode of RTBP. So glad you're here. I am so excited for today's episode. I have Christy from X Knows All, pop culture commentator. She does a lot of like the fun early 2000s celebs that we love, like Selena, Hilary Duff. She did an episode on Laguna Beach, and we're going to talk about The Hills today, which I'm so excited. We talk about mainly Spencer Pratt and his new series on TikTok, which now has a name. It's called The Spills, which I think is really cute. He's actually so funny and really made for TV. And I don't think people see that because he is like a huge evil mon. And I feel like all of his bad qualities override all of his good qualities, which like I guess that's how it should be. But he's actually so funny, and I've been enjoying. I'm watching with a critical eye. I feel like we give him a lot of credit in this episode, so we are fully prepared to be canceled. And he talks a lot of shit about like Audrina, Lauren, and Whitney, which I don't like because I really like those girls. But you just know he's like made for Hollywood and he's made for TV. So we talk about his TikTok. We talk about Amanda Bynes' conservatorship. She just applied for it to be revoked. And then I also wanted to let you know that I did a bonus episode this week on Love is Blind Season 2 with Sophie from Unpaid Emotional Labor, and we're going to be covering the reunion next week. So there'll be a video version on Sophie's Patreon and then the audio-only version on the RTBP feed. And I just wanted to say, if you want us to cover anything that we didn't in bonus episode 16 from the series proper, or if you want us to cover anything specific from the reunion, from Reddit, from, you know, the public reactions, from the Instagram posts and stories that we've seen from the cast, slide into either of our DMs and we would love to, you know, chat about what you want covered too. So let's get to my conversation with Christy. I'm back with a very special guest. Christy from X Knows All is here. Christy, how are you?
Hi, Tori. I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you so much for joining me. I binged, I think, your like first, 4 episodes. You tagged me in a post on Instagram and I'm like so grateful.
No, it was like my creepiness allowed us to create this beautiful friendship. So thank you so much for having me on. It's truly an honor and a pleasure.
Oh my gosh, thanks for coming on. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your podcast.
Sure. So I have just started podcasting specifically with X Knows All. So I've only had 4 or 5 episodes released so far, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. I've always been super into celebrity culture since I was a little kid. Like literally since I was 6, my first inception of celebrity culture was the Olsen twins, and it's been a fervent passion of mine ever since. So I decided, you know, anytime something crazy happens with pop culture, I always have my friends in my DMs and coworkers asking me like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So I figured, you know, why not have a platform where I can talk about these things in real time and also deep dive into the celebrities that like I've always been interested in, but I don't know. I don't see that there's much of a platform for like specific millennial type early 2000s celebs. I don't know. There's just not a lot of deep dives on the internet about them. So I figured why not have a podcast to do it myself? So far I've covered the Olsen twins, Hilary Duff, the Call Her Daddy drama. What else? Laguna Beach, Selena Gomez. So yeah, it's been really fun.
It's so fun. Yeah, I love revisiting people like the Olsen twins. Like what a throwback. But you're right. Like they had such an impact on our like growing up and our childhood. It's like, of course I want to talk about them and listen about them.
Exactly. And the thing is, they're so mysterious too. Like they don't do any press anymore. I think the last interview they did was maybe, I don't know, maybe 2014. So it's just the mystery kind of leads to the allure and like the interest. It piques my interest so much because they have no social media. They never do press. So I'm always curious what the goings on of them are today because they were so public in the early onset of their career. But yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of fun. I'm really excited to talk with you today about our medley of topics.
Yes. Oh my God. We have so much fun stuff on the docket. We're going to talk about Spencer Pratt from The Hills and his new foray into TikTok. We're going to talk about Amanda Bynes attempting to end her conservatorship. And then we have a Pettyweight champ of the week and This Week in Petty story. So let's get into it. We are both huge fans of The Hills. Huge. Have you been watching, just like a little side tangent, have you been watching Whitney Port's and her husband Timmy's recaps of The Hills and Laguna Beach on YouTube?
So I follow the Laguna Beach and the Hills Reddit. So while I'm not necessarily like watching her YouTube videos, I do see snippets and I know what the goings on are over there. I think it's really interesting because she just, I guess, came out with a video of her and Timmy addressing the fact that a lot of viewers are saying, why are you two being so shady towards Lauren Conrad? Because I guess that a lot, anytime they're rewatching these old clips of the Hills and Laguna, Timmy's always seen rolling his eyes and Whitney's also kind of just, they just seem very dismissive of LC. And people are kind of questioning the fact that like she's kind of the person that gave you all the platform and now you're kind of like shading her online for everyone to see like a decade later. I thought that was really interesting because I know that when LC had her podcast, I forgot what it's called. It was like had a short run.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was,
yeah.
I mean, it was fine. It was very like on brand for her, like the like rose kind of colored glass. It just seemed very put together. It wasn't crazy, but I remember she had Whitney on as a guest, and they were talking about how, despite the fact that they don't really keep in touch all the time, that they're glad they went through the experience of being on the show together, and they were always allies on the show, etc. And then like no more than a year later, Whitney's seen shading her on like her channel. It's just I don't love it, to be honest. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So it's interesting because I feel like they weren't shady towards Lauren when they recapped the city and even like some of the early seasons of The Hills. But I feel like especially when they started their Laguna Beach recaps, they've been like really shady towards her. So I don't know if they like had something go on in the interim. Like maybe Lauren was like, hey, can you like stop these? Or like, I don't love this or something like that. And then they've kind of like soured towards her. But I feel like they were like pretty objective and fair, but like they've gotten a little shady. I also think like I love Lauren Conrad, but I don't think she's like a perfect human. And I think that's the other piece that I found with like rewatching The Hills and stuff through these recaps is just like I actually didn't love like a lot of her behavior. And you were kind of saying, were you, when you did your Laguna Beach deep dive, you were team Kristen, right?
I think now I'm definitely team Kristen. When I was a young kid watching Laguna, I was hardcore team LC. And I think I haven't actually like done a full rewatch of The Hills. I've done like snippets of like watching Laguna episodes here and there, but rewatching like what I have of Laguna, it's clear to me watching as an adult that Kristen was just a confident young woman that I think a lot of people her age at the time, like I don't even have that confidence as a 30-year-old, let alone have that kind of confidence as a 17-year-old. So it's really refreshing to see Kristen having like, for lack of a better term, big dick energy. And then you have Elsie that's kind of, they really played it up as like her being the quiet, shy, timid, nice girl, whereas Kristen was this bitch. But I think knowing what we know now about how reality TV is edited, it's very clear that like they were putting them into two very distinct buckets and that did I don't know. And I've mentioned this really briefly on my podcast, but I've met Lauren and she was just not nice. Like
I know you said that.
Yeah. She just doesn't have good energy. So I don't know. I'm kind of a Kristen stan now, but
Me too. Yeah, I feel like she's like a little snobby and a little bit like too like control freaky. Like you're talking about her, you mentioned her podcast and it was like, yeah, it was like a recorded production. Nothing was like a genuine conversation. It was like really overproduced and like maybe that's why it just like didn't take off.
Yeah, I think that people are really wanting to see like more realness and rawness from influencers and celebrities, and Lauren Conrad is still in like the early 2000s girl boss type energy that I think isn't really selling anymore. Like if you even look at her Instagram, it's so curated. It's like the same like preset, and I mean I guess that's fine, you have to have some kind of aesthetic, but she never shows any like rawness or like just she never seems tumultuous. She seems so Martha Stewart to where it's like I don't feel people relate to her as much as they once did when we were younger.
100%. And I kind of feel like that too. I feel like I've got one foot in the like that elder millennial camp, like Lauren, wanting to be like just present yourself in a particular way, and then I have one foot in the like Emma Chamberlain Gen Z like raw realness on the internet.
I know it's like the Gen Z, like their version of Laguna is TikTok, I guess. It's like the Addison Rays and the Emma Chamberlains and Olivia Rodrigos and Sabrina Carpenters of the world. It's very interesting.
100%. So let's talk about TikTok and Spencer Pratt. So like only like a week ago, like this is really recent, but there's like 1,000 videos that I forced myself to watch for this podcast. But Spencer, he's always had a TikTok, but like really started to post on it. And he has been doing like kind of live reacts, quick takes on the hills. And I feel like he's spilling a lot of tea. And to be honest, like I believe a lot of it. What do you think about it?
100%. I think Spencer is nothing but consistent. Let's just say that. From when The Hills was at its peak in like 2007 to now, he's always felt the tea. I think he's really based his career on being just a degenerate, which I mean, as a celebrity reality TV connoisseur, I love it. And it's, yeah, I think that everything he's laying out, I don't think he would ever sugarcoat anything, which is nice. And I think he understands the assignment. He's the reason why The Hills New Beginnings even started to air, because he was the one who presented it to MTV and was like, listen, I think we have something a decade later that fans would be interested in. Like, he understands what he needs to do to make it fun, to make it reality TV, you know? So I'm so glad you did like a deep dive on all these, because there's so much we need to talk through about that.
Yes, seriously. And yeah, I totally think you're right. And I want to preface this conversation with being like, I think Spencer Pratt is a piece of shit. Like, I think he is a bad person. I feel like he is evil. I feel like he is calculated. I don't like a lot of his views on stuff. But what I will say is he is made for reality TV. And like, look at his background. He was an executive producer on The Princes of Malibu. I'm pretty sure he pitched that show.
I'm sure he did.
Yes. And like, which was, if you don't know, that was Brody and Brandon Jenner's reality TV show that Spencer was on, and like David Foster was on, and
it
like
always leads back to the Fosters. There's
always leads back to the Fosters.
Every celebrity has some kind of connection to the Fosters. I'm sure of it.
It's wild, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on, but literally, yeah, he's just made for this world. And I do want to preface, like, I think you can be evil and still good at stuff, and like, this is what he's good at.
No, I mean, yeah, he was meant to be a reality TV star. And I think, I didn't look this up and I should have, but how old was he when Princes of Malibu began? I'd imagine
he was really young.
Like, who does that as an executive producer, you know?
Yeah, I think he was like in his like early to mid 20s, because then when he met Heidi, it was a few years after, and she was like 20 and he was like 25. So it would have, maybe he like say like was like 23 or whatever. But I think that people like don't give him enough credit, and it's like, why am I trying to give this like bad person credit? But like, he's created so much content for us, and like, I think that, yeah, people don't give him enough credit for what he did for The Hills. So here are some of the things he's claiming on TikTok that he did for the TV show. So the first thing that really stuck out to me is that him and Brody were just, you know, two LA dudes, and they were in the party scene. And obviously Lauren and Heidi and Audrina are like going out to the popular clubs.
Les Deux
and Area. Yeah. And like all these places that like I just wish I could be there, like in 2006 or whatever. And he was just saying like how he basically inserted himself into The Hills. Like, Brody at the time was dating Nicole Richie, and Spencer and him just like wanted to get on the show, so they just like went to the bars that they were at and just like inserted themselves into the situation.
I didn't know that, actually. And when I was reading, you know, your notes that you sent over, I was like, oh my God, wait a minute. Brody dated Nicole Richie? I was like, what the hell? But I think it's genius. Like, they, again, understanding the assignment, knowing exactly what they needed to do to get to on top. And look what they created. They created this monster of a reality TV show. I truly cannot imagine what The Hills would have looked like had those two not been into the picture, because they were such a pinnacle part of the show. And it's crazy that like they were never OG cast.
100%. And like, think about the first season of The Hills with like Brian and Jason and like those losers.
Yes.
Compared to like the second season season and beyond. Like, and okay, I really do love Lauren, and again, I'm so grateful for what she has contributed to pop culture because she is like literally iconic. And I think that she can carry a show. Like, people were saying like Whitney couldn't carry The City, but I think Lauren can carry a show. But like, I think it would have been boring or have fizzled out if we didn't have people like Spencer and Brody and Heidi on the Hills.
Agreed.
And then the other piece, so like our introduction to Spencer on the Hills is basically that he's seen Heidi, and Spencer was talking about on the show that they weren't exclusive. They were just dating each other and other people. And he kind of alluded that she had a famous like actor not boyfriend, but other man that she was dating on the side. And so when we see him interacting with Audrina, like it's all set up. / she wasn't like actually mad because like they weren't exclusive.
Right. This is all new information to me. That is wild because these two deserve an Emmy award.
Yes.
Like, how were they able to play us so well? I was convinced that, because all I can think about, and this might have been later on when they were actually exclusively dating, but do you remember that one scene when Lauren, it was like, you could tell it was the morning after and they were so hungover, and I think Heidi might have still been drunk, and Lauren was yelling at Spencer on the phone and was like, I had my best friend cry. And Heidi clearly looked disturbed. Like, she was so upset, but I'd imagine that was later on when they actually were dating, or maybe on the peak of like making it official. But that is so crazy that they weren't actually exclusive at that point. The whole Audrina thing, the Pinkberry date, that doesn't surprise me as much. Like, because now we know the Hills was so contrived, but damn, they could have fooled me. I thought they were fully like one true pair, the two of them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so Spencer also said he never liked Audrina, and the iconic Pinkberry date where he gets her like a single stem rose.
The red rose. Oh, I remember exactly what they were wearing too. She had like her hair up. Oh my God.
Oh my God, her hair. Look, and then she had like a huge headband and then huge black bug sunglasses. Like, it's burned into my retina.
Oh my God, I'm dying. I need to rewatch these episodes. Yes, the headband of it all. That's when headbands were such a moment. Do you remember?
I know.
Claire Waldorf and Gossip Girl, those were the times.
Yeah, trust me, I was wearing the like thickest headband that you could ever find, which like, it's like I had a headache for 3 years straight.
Pain is beauty. Pain is beauty. Okay.
Oh my God. It's so funny. And yeah, so he was like, that date was filmed like way after a lot of this other stuff went down. So I think like what producers do to make, even like to like gaslight the characters in the show, is like they tell some people that it's fake and set up and they don't tell other people. So like maybe when Lauren was yelling on the phone, she thought all of this was like real, but like Heidi knows it's not. Like, that's what I kind of think is like, and that's why I think some of the acting or like some of the behavior doesn't seem like acting, because it's like we just know different information.
I never thought of it like that. Like, the producers are telling Heidi one thing, but they're choosing to omit certain information of Lauren so she can get seriously riled up.
Yes.
I totally believe
that's kind of how they do that, right?
Yes, I completely believe that. And I remember there was this one, I don't know where I watched this like deleted scene, but remember that, obviously, that iconic fight, You Know What You Did, when Lauren's in that white dress. I watched a deleted scene footage where before they got into that argument, you could hear Lauren like is taking off her mic and she's yelling at the producers and it's like, I'm not doing this anymore. Get her out of here. I don't want her around this space. I don't want to film with her. She was like screaming at it's interesting because they haven't developed these relationships with the producers behind the cameras, and they almost entrust in them so much because they're telling them so much. It's like The Bachelor, right? You trust the producer and you divulge so much information that you wouldn't normally share on national television, but you develop like a personal relationship. So it's like Lauren at that time felt so betrayed because the producers were in like being so instrumental in getting them together in the same room when that was the last thing Lauren actually wanted. And she was like, and I read too that like Spencer was fighting for them to get more equal pay across the cast. I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but like, I know Spencer was arguing behind the scenes, like when the Hills really started to take off, like saying, why is Lauren getting paid so much more than all of us? And we're the ones that are creating all the drama. We're the ones that are driving the show. And Lauren was like, absolutely not. I do not want them getting paid nearly as much as I was. And I don't know like what the actual like per episode rate was that each of them were getting paid, right? But I think Lauren was getting a significant amount more than everyone else was. That was like a bunch of tangents in one, but like this is all just coming to me, and like again, like I feel like Spidey was just, they were so taken advantage of. They really brought the show so forward, and now Spencer continues to reap off of the benefits of like spilling even more tea after the fact.
100%. So, like, I do think a lot of the things that he's saying is true. And, like, yes, I definitely think, like, maybe, again, it's like this filmed 20 years ago or whatever. So, it's like a lot of the things probably, hindsight is 2020, and it's like you're remembering things differently and, like, all of these things. So, it's like everything I do take with, like, a grain of salt. But... And, like, also, it's, like, he's so clout chasey, so it's, like, of course he's gonna say stuff to stay in the spotlight, because, like, he wants to be famous and rich so badly.
And they, like, completely, like, liquidated all of their money, like, so early on, so
Mm-hmm.
he's, like, gripping so tightly to get that lifestyle that they once had when they were, what, 25, 26?
Yes, and just had like millions of dollars
Yeah.
to like blow through, and they did
Yeah.
essentially blow through it all, and now they live like still like a extremely nice lifestyle, but like just not as bougie as they like once were and stuff. But so I also do get that he might conflate things to like get more views and have people on their podcast talk about it like us, but I do think that there is some truth to it. It's so funny. So he's like, there's two pieces of evidence, or this is what he presented in his TikTok. He's like, so the scene where Heidi thinks she's pregnant is fake, and they kind of walked through the scene where she takes a pregnancy test, and Heidi was like, yeah, I'm like completely acting here. Like, did not think I was pregnant at all. And then Spencer was like, well, it's kind of gross that these like men that were producing the shows like in their 40s are asking this 20-year-old girl who obviously has a lot riding on this show, like, can you do this pregnancy scare situation? So I feel like at that age you would just say yes to anything. Like, that actually makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, they were so easily manipulated, and I think MTV, they monopolized on the fact that they were so easily influenced, these kids, because they didn't know what they were doing. They had never had jobs before. They were fresh out of high school, fresh out of college. Like, they don't know the difference between right and wrong. But I agree, it is bizarre that an older man is instructing this 23-year-old girl to fake a pregnancy. It's slimy. Now, I can't imagine like what is like an equivalent TV show where this type of behavior could potentially occur again today?
Like, well, I think about the Euphoria cast.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't this is kind of apples to oranges, not apples to apples, but like with the nudity and like some of the like traumatizing scenes, it's like when you're an up and coming actor, you're not saying no to that. And like causing quote unquote trouble on set because you want to do well.
Yeah, it is. It's exploiting on like young people that want to take their career further.
Totally.
Yeah, I would say Euphoria is a good comparison.
And like I think a lot of the shows that have like kids, like for some reason the first one I thought of was like Toddlers and Tiaras or like Dance Moms or something like that, but I think like shows that have kids also like has the potential for like this to happen. And yeah, it's really shitty when you think of like the behind the scenes. It makes me feel bad to be a consumer of this content, honestly. But he was like, so I was drinking a Kirkland water bottle, like a Costco water bottle, during the scene where Heidi comes into my car in the back of Bolt House Productions, like in the alleyway. And like, I would never drink Costco Kirkland water.
He's a Voss guy. He's a Voss guy.
He's for sure a Voss guy. He's a Fiji water exclusive drinker. And he was like, so I like, this proves that I was like hanging out with the crew in production right before this and like plotting out this like storyline and stuff. And I was like, that's like funny, but I was like, also, I'm like, I still believe you.
I believe him. I mentioned this in my Mary Kay and Ashley episode, but he was the one who released that photo of Mary Kay when she was still in high school of her absolutely wasted and Spencer's in the back. Like,
oh yeah, he sold it.
He sold it for I think it was like $50,000.
Yeah,
and
he's evil, but evil. A genius.
Exactly. He knows what he's doing. He's friends with the people behind the scenes. He's friends with the TMZs of the world, the producers. This doesn't surprise me whatsoever.
Yeah. The other like dark thing that he talked about was like how at the time, I guess Jersey Shore was also taking off. It was near the time where Snooki got punched in the face at the bar. And literally the producers asked Spencer to punch Stephanie in the face.
Oh no.
I know, like, and he was like, that's fucked up. Like, that's what they were like asking me to do. And then so he has again been posting this all on TikTok and Twitter, and a person that worked on the Hills tweeted in support of Spencer and just said, like, I'll forever back up your truth. For the past 5 minutes, I've been thinking about times where a lot of things shouldn't have been asked to happen, or when the real situations where cast needed help or someone to listen were being ignored. Love you and Heidi for life.
That's very dark. I'm trying to remember. So interestingly enough, this is like such a fangirl story. So with the Hills series finale, they did this production at the Roosevelt Hotel, and I don't even know how the hell I got tickets, but I did. And me and my like best friend,
Just wait. Was this the one hosted by Jesse and Dan?
it was like it was like the when everyone was like there was like the pool and everyone.
Yes.
Yes, I was there. I was there.
Yes. Oh my God, that's so. And Lauren was wearing the green dress.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's so iconic. But like that was hosted by Dan Levy of Schitt's Creek.
Oh, almost. See, it's been so long. I don't even remember that. Like, I just remember it was. I'm such a fangirl because I've been to so many events like this. I've been to the VMAs. Like, it's
oh my God,
it's really easy to get tickets, like because they need the seat fillers. But I remember that was an event where it was the bougiest event. Like, they gave us food, drinks, everything was on the house. Like, we all had seating. It was lovely. But I remember that at the series finale, Heidi and Spencer were not on good terms at all with the production, so they weren't even invited.
Right.
And I remember there were allegations that
Right.
Heidi was making against some executive, maybe not even an executive producer, but a producer, a crew member, or a cameraman behind the scenes, saying that she was being sexually harassed by someone in the crew. And that's why they weren't invited back. And they were having like a really, really tenuous relationship with MTV. So I'm curious, like, whatever came out of that, or if anything even did come out of that. But it's interesting now, like, the relationship they have with MTV today. I mean, again, they were the ones that started the Hills New Beginning. So I'm sure they've buried the hatchet. Clearly, it's just, I wonder what happened out of those allegations, because those were pretty serious. I mean, if they were in fact
Super
true.
serious.
And and I'm just reading like exactly this quote that you just said about, where the cast in real situations needed help and it was often ignored. Like, is her possible sexual assault allegation grouped into this? Like, is a producer acknowledging the fact that maybe something like that did perhaps occur? Maybe he's just talking about other events, but makes me think. I'm getting very like nostalgic over all these old things that I'm forgetting.
Me too. And like the other thing that I was thinking about is Jason with his drug and alcohol addiction. Like, we watched him clearly like struggling for years with drugs and alcohol, and it was exploited on the TV show. So like, he was the first person that I thought of when it was like real situations where the cast needed help or someone to listen were being ignored. Like, yeah, he's another person that I just think of immediately.
Have you been watching The Hills New Beginnings?
No, I watched like the first 3 or 4 episodes of season 1, and then I just didn't pick it up again.
I honestly would I think season 2 was trash, but season 1 was actually, like, me and my roommate were obsessed, because I'm praying to God that there was some realness to it, but you really saw, like, Jason has completely turned it around. Like, he's made it his life's work to be like a mental health advocate for people struggling and with addiction. He's very open about his suicide attempts, how he hit rock bottom. And like, if I like read articles on the fact, like when I was researching, when he started talking about it on The Hills New Beginnings, like what that looked like. And he said it all started when he started filming Laguna Beach and the Hills. And you can imagine how hard that is for someone who has a struggle with drugs and alcohol, and to be invited to these like press parties and these club openings, and you're getting paid to quite literally party. I mean, that still happens today. And you're being offered, I'm sure, like Coke in the club, you're getting drinks handed to you left and right, all for free. Like, how could you? And again, like, if you're an addict, of course, you can't say no. Like that, it's just, it's mental. So I really, like, my hat kind of goes down to him just for being so authentic and real about his struggles and making it, his work to try and help and encourage others life outside of it. And he's been open about his relapse as well. Like, he relapsed on the show, or maybe like a couple weeks before the show started filming, and he talks about how him and his wife had to sell their house because he had a gambling addiction once he got past the drugs and alcohol, and they had to sell their house to like liquidate the cash or whatever. And it's so crazy. And then again, it goes back to the producers exploiting him. Like, seriously, they were the adults here. He was a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 21-year-old, clearly struggling, and you were just watching it all unfold and just filming it. That's very sad.
And like the pressure also, like if drugs and alcohol are your coping mechanism and you are thrust into the spotlight, you have the pressure to make an amazing TV show. It's based on literally your relationship with a girl. Like, what a pressure to like stay together and like be a good partner and like all of these things. You are so young. You just moved out of your like parents' house to LA, which is like a really tough city probably to live in. And yeah, of course, you're gonna just be stressed out and like reaching for something to like try to mitigate that. So yeah, it's really interesting. The other thing that Spencer is still alleging, speaking of the Jason of it all, is that Jason and Elsie had a sex tape. What do you think about that?
I will die on this hill. They 100% did. And the thing is, like, I think it was so scandalous at the time because, again, Lauren was portrayed as such a good girl, just the good girl, always, consistently through the Laguna Beach and the Hills. So it was so shocking to hear that, oh my God, this good girl, this like girl next door has a sex tape. And I mean, people are going to do what they want in their like personal lives with their significant other. Like, I don't think sex tapes are necessarily that even like uncommon.
No.
It's like,
or bad.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a bad thing, or it's not uncommon to hear about that. I think it's more of the fact that it was America's sweetheart kind of having this thrust into our face. And that was like around the time when it was like the Paris and the Kims of it all. Like, it was much more, I mean, I guess it still is salacious, like Pamela Anderson, Kim Kardashian, Paris Hilton. So it's like to loop sweet Lauren Conrad into this group of women who have had sex tapes. It's like, it was so incomprehensible. It was one, I'm certain it happened. I'm like, well, I can't be certain, but I'm almost positive it happened. And I think that was their business. And I've read and listened to like interviews where Spencer has said, Heidi tried vehemently for Lauren to get that video back because when Jason was in the throes of his addiction, like he was trying to sell it for money. And so we were actually trying to help Lauren. And then she turns the tables and says, saying that we made it up when in fact we were just trying to help her the whole time. So, I mean, I think there is definitely one, and it's a shame that it kind of had to fall on their shoulders, I think. What do you think? I mean, I think it was so fucked up that he did what he did.
Yeah, 100%. Like, again, evil man. But I don't know. I feel like I don't have an opinion on this because I still, again, like, I don't know all the facts, or maybe I have all the facts, but I just like don't know what is true or not. Like, it makes sense to me that Jason would try to sell it, like if he was like really desperado for money and stuff like that. Like, that makes a lot of sense to me. But I also could see Spencer selling this type of story to the tabloids because, like, look what he did with Mary-Kate. Was it Mary-Kate or Ashley?
Mary-Kate, yeah.
Yeah, Mary-Kate. So it's like, I could also see that. So I honestly don't know who to believe, but I do think that there is like a sex tape. And you're right. Like, I feel like also now you and I are like, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
With like even like just like the popularity of like nude pics and stuff like that. I feel like we're just in a different stage. But I was like, when this came out in like 2003 or whatever, that was like the biggest scandal you could ever have. And now basically like so many, like it's still, yeah, you're right, like salacious. We still like talk about it, but it's not as like shameful. Whereas like then it was like so shameful. And you're right, like all the sluts like Paris and Kim had sex tapes, like couldn't be Lauren. But yeah, like, but nowadays it's just like, oh, it's not a big deal. The big deal is people profiting off or using that content without people's consent, that it's being shared or discussed or viewed or whatever. Like, that's the fucked up part that I think about. But yeah. I still don't know who's innocent and who's guilty in all of this. But I don't know. It's still so fascinating. I think like also the other thing that I think about is like Lauren yeah, like got the good girl edit on Laguna and for sure in the early days of the Hills. And like, I think that, yeah, like there had to be almost like a foil and
A foil. Yeah, that's a good way to.
yeah, and like people just ended up in that position, like Kristen and Heidi and Spencer and stuff like that. And they need that for the shows. Like there always has to be the foil. But I think like, again, it's not so black and white. It's not like good versus evil like the TV show wants us to think it is. Like I feel like there's a lot more gray area that people maybe just don't discuss as much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point of like Lauren was the center of the show. And even today, there's no single reality show. I don't even think like just speaking in today's terms, but ever that I can think of, at least on the top of my head, where there's a narrator and then there's just the supporting characters. Like Lauren was the center of the show. She was the one that had the voiceovers and like there was, if you think about The Bachelor, they have the ITMs, right? The interviews, ITMs meaning in the moments, and they can kind of speak to their perspective as to what was happening in that event. Whereas with The Hills, Lauren was the only one narrating. There was no ITMs. There was like, and even The Hills New Beginnings, there were ITMs. There was no center person that narrated the show. But of course, production was always going to be on Lauren's side. She was the reason the show even existed, which is why she was fighting for such a much higher salary than the rest of her counterparts, was because she was like, I'm the center of this show. So that's just like another interesting kind of thing where can you think of any, is there any show that comes to your mind where you can think of it circulates around a single person and everyone else just supports that individual?
So the one that comes to mind, and like listeners, if you can think of one, DM us. But the one that comes to mind is Siesta Key. Which is ironic because it's an Adam DeVillo show, which everyone knows is the creator of Laguna Beach and The Hills. But I think in the first season of Siesta Key, or maybe even the second season, it was like, say there was 10 episodes, Juliet narrated like 3 and everyone else had like 1 episode. But I think by now, which they're in like season, I think 5, I think it's just Juliet.
Oh, I don't watch Siesta Key, but everyone tells me it's everything of the sort, and then I would watch it.
You have to, and there's a new season coming out. And like everyone, please go and watch it. It's so fun. And I feel like it just doesn't have the like fan base, which is so weird because it is probably one of the closest shows to The Hills, obviously because of the creator, but it's really, really good TV. So I highly recommend you check it out.
My sister's obsessed. She's always like, you need to watch it. I can't believe you don't. It's very up my alley. I just need to slot it into the queue.
Absolutely. And yeah, this is the perfect time because there's a new season starting really soon. Is there anything else you want to mention about? Oh, I think the last thing I wanted to talk about with Spencer Pratt on TikTok is actually Heidi on TikTok, because she has been eating raw livers and raw animal testicles on camera. I don't want to be judgy about like food because like I also know that like I'm from Canada, you're in the States, like I also know that there's probably lots of like cultures that eat like raw food that, and like I don't want to be judgy. I was just in Mexico and like I went to this little town and their like specialty was like fried brain tacos, like cow brains, and and like I just don't want to be judgy. Like I'll try anything once, but like her literally just holding a raw liver that's like glistening in the California sun. Christy's gonna fucking vom on air.
No, it's disturbing.
It's disturbing. Yeah. Like it's bloody, and I also like I don't know, please don't eat a poor animal's balls. Like I just can't. I can't.
I first of all, you are such a sweetheart. You're a woke queen. The fact that you even
oh my God, stop.
You're so funny. You're like, I don't want to like I'm glad that you prefaced that. Totally, there are cultures that eat the whole of the animal. Like I'm Chinese, I'm sure like in China, people, will make a soup out of liver. Like I don't know. It's fine. I'm not judging. I think that it's just, I don't think that's necessarily hygienic's not the right word. Is safe. Like you have to kind of boil those. I'd imagine. I mean, I'm not an expert. I'd imagine you have to boil like raw parts of the animal to reduce any like toxins, or I'm thinking like
Mhm.
salmonella. I mean, people most often think of chicken, but like, it's gross. Like I when I saw your notes, someone at work also mentioned this to me literally yesterday. Like, have you watched Heidi's TikTok? Like you need to watch it. So I went on, and it's literally, like you said, it's like a glistening raw liver, like straight from the butcher counter where she got it. Like she didn't boil it. I'm envisioning Rosemary's Baby when like the devil is in her spirit and she is craving like red meat. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie. It's like really scary.
No.
There's a scene where she literally has a craving for like red meat and she's eating it raw, and it just
Oh my
reminded
God.
me. It's so disturbing.
Bella Cullen vibes.
Yeah, like I don't know why she's doing it. Perhaps it's for fertility, because I know she talked a lot about The Hills season 2 New Beginnings where she was struggling to have another child. So perhaps that's the reason why, but it's very bizarre. And she's not, at least from the videos I saw, she's not giving much context into why she's having these different cravings. So it's very weird and kind of disgusting, but ugh.
It's so weird. And then, of course, it got picked up by like Just Jared or some other tabloid website, and then Spencer's retweeting it. So it's just like, why? Is this another like ploy for like fame and headlines? Or like, are you actually interested in eating this glistening?
Glistening is such a right.
I know. That's why I've said it like 3 times now. Like,
I literally have chills, full body chills up my spine.
Well, she's not even in like a kitchen or like sitting at a dining room table. She's literally on her like sun deck.
She's on her balcony in her bedroom,
yes,
just eating raw liver. No, it's foul.
So weird. It's just yeah. But you're totally right. Like if that was like in a dish, like sure, I'll try it. But like, oh my God.
Just boil
it's
it.
Just like,
just so you get the disgustingness out of it. Just at least if it's boiled, I don't want to pass judgment. I'm sure it's good if you like throw some seasoning on it, but raw.
Yes.
Whole other thing that I'm not willing to myself touch.
Me neither. Oh my God, it was so gross. Okay, let's quickly pivot because I can't. Like, I'm gonna lose my lunch over here, like real quick. But some really great news came out this week that Amanda Bynes has filed to end her 9-year conservatorship. So I'm sure like this maybe has been influenced by Britney being successful in her conservatorship case. What do you think of this news?
I was pretty shocked by it because I feel like Amanda has been really quiet over the past like 5 or 6 years since her mental breakdown. And I mean, personally for me, I remember when all of that was unfolding, and that's when Perez Hilton was like a huge, like that's where everyone got their news. At least that's where I got all my news. I was quite literally like, I remember in college refreshing Perez every hour to see what was happening, what was unfolding next, because it just didn't stop. Like, and before this episode, I did a little bit of research to try and remember like what happened. And there was just a sequence of events that led to the conservatorship. Like she had multiple hit and runs, like in LA, not just like across like maybe a month period. There was like 3 different hit and runs. She was like, I think she had a possession of weed. She lit a driveway on fire. I remember she moved to New York and she threw a bong out her window, like from her like 6th floor apartment, like actually causing like a serious safety hazard for like those that could have potentially gotten hit by the bong. I remember she was posting super disturbing videos on Twitter. Like, honestly, these are baked into my brain of her. Like, I remember on her cell phone in the mirror, it was kind of like MySpace selfie-esque, where like she's looking at herself and like twitching her face. And she had really crazy makeup on, and she had that like Marilyn Monroe
beauty mark
earring. It was so disturbing. I remember thinking, holy shit, she needs so much help. Like this is like a 5150 type thing. So I'm glad. I mean, it seems now, since all that has unfolded and the conservatorship has been in place, it seems like she's been really quiet. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, like I'm not sure. I'd imagine, I mean, she's not lighting any driveways on fire, so that's good. But it makes me wonder of like what her, one, what her diagnosis is, and 2, whether the conservatorship is different from Britney's in the sense that maybe it's there to really help her. Or I guess I'm not entirely well-versed on what terms and conditions are in her conservatorship. Does she have control over her own finances? Like, is she locked into her house like Britney was? Like, I don't know. Do you know? I guess I think my take is I'm not as quite sure whether a conservatorship is as severe as Britney's, where like, I think Britney's she was truly like imprisoned, and I don't think that was good at all. But is Amanda's put into a place for a good reason or not? Because it seemed like she was so unwell that maybe could potentially be for a good reason, but I don't know enough.
Yeah, you're right. There's so many missing details that we don't have. And like, if you have some of these details, like, please fill us in. But from my understanding, you're right. Like, she has access to her phone. She attended school. She graduated from FITM a la Lauren and Heidi in 2020. And I think the major difference is that her mom is the like conservator, but she has a good relationship with them and like a loving with her parents, a loving relationship, whereas like Brittany obviously is like jail to to all my family members. So I think that that is a difference, that like I think her mom's the conservator and like it seems like she has her like best interests at heart, but like it did go on for 9 years.
Yeah, wow, it's been so long.
So long. So I don't know, cuz like I think the thing that I learned from Britney's conservatorship is like basically it's wild unless you like are really really ill to have these like really strict and invasive measures on you. So I'm like how is that any different? But like I do think that there's like also key differences, like she's still in contact with her parents and there's no like weird money shit going on and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. The difference between I think Britney's and Amanda's is that Britney was fully working like a monkey, like a quite literally a circus
Yes,
monkey on
yes.
her residency in Vegas. She had like, for years, and her, the people of the conservatorship were still collecting from that residency. There was a
Yes.
constant, like there was true money being transferred from Britney to the conservatorship. Whereas Amanda, I mean, for what I understand, I'm not sure she's really working. She hasn't had any projects.
Mhm.
So I'd imagine it's not like her mom is using her as a show monkey to then reap the profits from her daughter. I'd imagine, yeah, to your point, conservatorships, from my understanding, is people that really don't have the mental faculties to care for themselves. If they have children, their children, or their funds. It seems like Amanda, she's in school. She seems to have been working on her sobriety. Like you have in the notes, she was engaged. I don't think they're still together, but she met someone in AA, and they were engaged to be married. I don't know if that's still a thing. One thing that
Yeah.
actually is coming to mind is, do you remember she came out? She'll have Amanda will have Instagrams, and then she'll take them down, and then she'll have an Instagram and she'll take it
Yes.
down, and she'll like post
Yeah.
something and she'll take it down. So it's very inconsistent what she's up to. But I remember that she had that picture that she was pregnant. Do you remember that sonogram she posted on Insta?
No.
Yeah, so this was like, I mean, if she really truly had in fact been pregnant, she would have had the baby by now, but that's like something where I mean, was she actually pregnant?
Yeah, she
Oh,
could have lost the baby
she
or
could have lost
something.
the baby. I haven't
Yeah.
heard anything since then, but I remember when she
Yeah.
announced the engagement, it's like, I'm pregnant, and I don't know where I'm going with this. I think that yes, there's a huge difference in juxtaposition between Britney's and Amanda's when it comes to actual funds and how much this conservatee was actually making whilst in the conservatorship. I wish her the best. I think that she is so talented. Like, She's the Man is
Yes.
an Oscar worthy film. I'll say it. It's Hannah
Yes.
McCann. Like, I'll watch it and laugh my ass off. Like, I'll be in tears because she's so damn talented. And watching old videos of her when she was a little kid and all that, like she was an icon. She's so smart.
I think she is like my number one 2000s
Girly.
like in the Hilary Duffs and the Lindsay Lohans and all of those, like Amanda Bynes might be out just because I feel like I relate to her. I feel like I'm the funny girl.
You're so cute. Yeah.
Like I just like related to her, like, like her like weird facial expressions that she would make, and like she would be like always be doing like weird voices and like stuff like that. Like she was the quirky but like still desired like female lead, and I related to be the desired female, the main character. No, but like I just was like, oh, she's so fun. She's like not afraid to like make fun of herself or like do these like kind of, like not embarrassing, but like these like this physical comedy and like all of this like really fun stuff in her films. And yeah, I think she's super talented. She is so good at acting, and even if she doesn't come back to acting, I just want whatever she wants to do, I'm just like fully in support of because I love her so much.
And it's weird because she was never as, I don't know if this is even a right statement. I never felt like she was as famous as Hillary or Lindsay.
Yes.
And it's bizarre because I feel like she was likely the most. I actually am a huge fan of Lindsay. I think Lindsay's actually a very talented actress. But
Me
I think
too.
her and Lindsay were head to head in terms of like their acting chops, and it's sad because the movie that we love so much, She's a Man, which I feel is so beloved amongst everyone who's watched it. She's quoted like saying that she went into a deep depression after filming that movie because she, like, quote, didn't like herself, her appearance as a boy, which is like such a weird, like, I'm trying to unpack exactly what that means because it's like makeup and costumes and wigs, like she alludes to a lot of like her mental trauma coming back from filming that movie.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's so strange. I would love to kind of pick apart what happened. And then I'm trying to think of the other film she was in. It was Easy A, but she was more of like a
side character,
a sidekick. And then
my favorite, What a Girl Wants.
Oh,
that like honestly might be my favorite film of all time.
So good. Oh my gosh, it's
my comfort film for sure.
And the guy was so damn cute. What was his name?
Oh my god, I loved him. He was also in Raise Your Voice.
Iconic movie as well. Have you seen that TikTok when it's like Hilary Duff is singing?
Yes, it does. Yes,
there's
like my little sister and I literally like once a day I'll be like, I will be like
it's like me and my 20 different personalities. Like, like literally. Oh my god, no, it's like yeah. It's and everyone like acting like she killed it. Like, wow. So, and it's like literally 4 different women's voices in that clip.
Oh my god, it's so iconic. If you don't know what we're talking about, like, stop listening to this podcast right now. Watch Raise Your Voice. I will post the TikTok and the clip on my socials. It is literally so iconic.
It's so good. And like the comments just send me people just like writing it. People on TikTok are so damn funny. Like,
so funny.
I love the internet so much for things like that. It's
me too. Like, I know TikTok's ruining my brain, but like it's also so funny. Like, I get so much out of it.
It brings me it's you learn things, it makes you laugh. It's a safe place on the internet as far as I'm concerned. Mostly.
Mostly, yes. Okay, well, I really hope that you choose Amanda Bynes for an X Knows All.
I'm scared because there's so much dark history that I've read that's not necessarily been like confirmed, but it's one of those things where I'm like, obviously I'm not nearly as famous to be on a Patreon, but if I had a Patreon, it would be a Patreon protected episode just because there's so much dark shit surrounding her. And I don't know what's real and what's not. I think,
Okay, that's a really good point that I will put this out there and then let's move on. But like, you're totally right. She was on Nickelodeon and there's been so much shit to come out of child stars in Nickelodeon. And one of the like fucking creeps that Beyond the Blinds just did an episode on, please, I'll link that in my episode show notes because I really don't want to touch on it and like get into it, but they really did, was on the Amanda show. And then I think literally went to like What I Like About You, like followed her career. And I just think of like these unprotected child stars that are put in these really dangerous situations with adult like men, and it's really dark. It really is dark. And like it's people are like, why did all of these child stars have breakdowns when they like hit 20? It's like because they have been like possibly like abused and taken advantage of and exposed to drugs and stuff like that throughout their like whole childhood and stuff. So
it isn't developed yet. Like,
like let's support them, not judge them.
Mm-hmm. Or like make fun of the fact that their breakdowns are like a product of the fact that they've potentially been abused by their elders and perhaps their family. Another thing I think about is like, you would think that their family would be so involved in the career where they wouldn't allow this to happen, but perhaps I'm not even pointing fingers at Amanda Bynes' family specifically, but like families in general that put their kids into these like throw these kids into these shows? Are you not supervising? Or I think you assume it's safe because
You assume it's
you assume it's
safe.
safe, but you maybe they're turning a blind eye or they just choose to not want to get
Yeah,
involved.
or
But
they just
it's
don't know.
yeah.
Yeah, it's super super sad. So, yeah, check out that episode on Beyond the Blinds. They do like a really good deep dive into like actually like court like proceedings and stuff like that. Okay, let's take a cleansing breath. It's
Yes.
like, oh my god. And let's move on to Pettyweight Champion of the Week. Christy, who are you nominating this week?
So this is pretty on brand for what we've been experiencing on the internet the past, I would say, month with the Kanye, Kim, Julia Fox of it all. So now that Julia Fox has been confirmed to be out of the picture, we are moving on to Kanye West's new relationship with Chaney Jones. And I guess I don't know too much about Chaney Jones, but what I can say and from what I've seen in terms of pictures on the internet is that she like is a Walmart version of Kim Kardashian. And you can't help but wonder, where is Kanye finding these women? Why is he intentionally being photographed with these women? Like, listen, you're a celebrity. You can easily hide behind any wall that you want and no one could photograph you if he wanted. Like he is intentionally going out of his way to be photographed with various women. And now the newest one, Chaney Jones, who's like I said, a carbon copy of Kim Kardashian, but like more of the Walmart version. It's like what you see online versus like what it looks like when you put it on. Like that's it. And I'm just like, Connie, like why? Why is this a promotion for your new album? Are you trying to get Kim's attention in light of her new relationship with Pete? Like, what is going on? Like, do you have to be so petty to where you have to find her an uglier version of your ex-wife?
Yeah, it's so weird because it's like, okay, like obviously you can have like a type, but this is like a replica. And I don't know, there is something like dark sided, I feel like, going on with this. You brought up a really good point. Like, Donda 2 is coming out like really soon, I think. And it's like on this weird, it's only being released on this like weird app or like this weird like Bluetooth player or something like that. That's like so random. And like, do you think a lot of these kind of like PR like stunts are just to promote Donda 2?
I've read that a lot of the lyrics that have been released for Donda 2 are specific like events that are now occurring in real time. It's as if Kanye is leading his life in parallel with the lyrics from his new upcoming album. So it makes me wonder like how much of these PR stunts are contrived and how much of it is Kanye being genuine. And it's so I sometimes get exhausted looking at what's going on with the Kardashians because there's always just so much happening. I mean, just because there's just so many of them that there's always new news. So sometimes I find myself getting overwhelmed and depleted and lethargic reading everything about them. So I try
Yeah.
and say much, it's like say kind of a little, I create a distance between myself and Kardashian news just because it's often too much for me to ingest. But I think that it would be interesting to see like what percentage of Kanye's current actions are related to like legitimate, just what he wants versus what he's doing to promote. I don't know the line. I have no idea, but it just seems exhausting, you know?
Yeah, it is exhausting. Like, I feel like there was like a 6 week run where on RTBB we just like covered like literally only Kim and Kanye stuff because it is never ending. And you're right, there's so many times nowadays. Like, I feel like I'm getting so much more media literate with TikTok and, these blind item podcasts that I listen to and like stuff like that, where it's just like pointing out these falsities and like just this fakeness of Hollywood. But then there's a point where I'm just like, I also feel like I don't know anything at all. Like, especially when it comes to this, like, it's so weird. It's also weird that Reggie Bush is his wife looks like Kim in like 2009 or whatever. So it's just weird that two of her exes like are dating slash married to someone that looks exactly like her. And like, is he with Chaney Jones or like does she just like parade around with him to Craig's and stuff and then go home? Like, I don't know. It's so weird.
And it just seems so quick after the Julia Fox breakup. And also my other question is, like he still spends time with the kids. Like even at the Super Bowl, he was seen with Morgan, I
Mm-hmm.
think with Saint. So I think he's
Yes.
still very much in the kids' lives, and he's recording an album, he's spending time with the kids. Like, how does he find the time to find these women? Like, I'd imagine he's telling his people to reach. Like, first of all, who even is she? I don't even know who she is.
I don't know, and I didn't look it up, and
Either.
my apologies. Like I just
I
didn't.
know I should have, but I'm just like, how
Yeah.
do you even find these people? And like, how does one go about? I'd love to know the logistics. How do you go about finding a date with these women that you are like now seen out and about with? Like, what is the process? Because it seems like you've got a lot. Like, it seems like you have some time on your hands, but I would imagine you don't because of like the divorce proceedings, and you just bought a house across the street from Kim's, and you're recording an album, and you're also spending time with North and Satan, taking them to the Super Bowl. Like, where do you find the time, and how does this happen?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. How do A-list celebs find their partners? Like I know like B and C list people are on like Raya and stuff like that. And I guess you just like slide into people's DMs, or you just like get introduced to them at like parties or whatever. But like how would someone like Kanye West meet a new partner?
I remember, like, this is kind of like what we were just talking about earlier in the episode with the Hills, but I remember the way Kristen Cavallari said she met Jay Cutler was like, it was literally like he told his people, like, I need to go on a date with Kristen Cavallari, invite her to my game, like this coming date, and we're gonna put her and her family in a box, and I want to be introduced to her. Like, I guess that's all it
Wild.
takes for you. And then like her publicist was like, Jay Cutler wants to meet you. And I think the reason she ended up taking the date was because her brother, which RIP, super sad, was like, because he passed away, but he was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan. Like, yeah, we should do it. So I'd imagine it's just people talking to the other person's people. But if Cheney Jones is a nobody, whose people is Kanye talking to?
Yes.
You know?
Okay, that literally sounds like Regency London and like Bridgerton vibes, where it's like that you arrange to go to their parlor and like sit and have tea, and their like parents are there, and like you meet your like future boyfriend. Like
It's a
that's
setup.
so
It's like an arranged
yeah.
marriage, but like an
Fuck,
arranged date.
that's so funny. Ugh. Well, Kanye West, you're a Pettyweight champion of the week, and honestly, probably of the foreseeable future. Like,
Like it's never
honestly,
ending.
honestly, yeah, it's like but I feel like it is kind of like isn't that kind of like what people do IRL when they break up with someone? It's like, oh, I'll just get like a partner that like will make you jealous, and a new girlfriend to make you jealous, and it's just like the same person as you.
100%. I can. It's like when you break up with somebody and then you want them to see that you're hanging out with other people and then you post it on your story. It's like them
Yeah.
posting it on their story, but to a much higher degree where they call tabloids and they get photographed. It's their Instagram story, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Oh, that's so
stars, they're
funny.
just like us, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, this week in Petty, I have a petty story that I want to get off of my chest.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it for
Okay,
it.
so this is kind of like, this isn't something that happened to me recently, even though I was talking about it with someone recently. But, restaurants are reopening where I live, so people are starting to go out, try new places, have a sit down meal, try a new restaurant that they haven't tried before. And one of my biggest pet peeves that I just have to have on air is when someone goes to a restaurant and they don't know what to order. My sister did this like a few weeks ago, and I like wanted to murder her like in the restaurant. But when the server comes and asks you what you want, and you just go like, or like people go like, is anything good here? Like, what would you recommend? Or like, what's good on the menu? Like, what do you suggest? And that pisses me off so much, because it's like, food is so subjective. You have such different tastes, and like, what is the server gonna do? Be like, everything's shit? Or like oh, I don't like anything here? Or like they'll be like, oh, like I like the burger, and you're like, oh, I'm veg, or something like that. Like, it is the most random question. I'm like, just fucking pick something off the menu.
I could not agree more. I like one of my best friends is literally just like that. And I think it comes down to people that are indecisive. And it hell out of me because I am so decisive and I know exactly what I want. And it bothers me when people waste my time that don't know. It's like, just pick. Like,
I know.
Just pick. No, I honestly feel that 120. I probably sound like a big bitch, but I
Me
totally,
too.
I
Me too.
totally understand what you're talking about here because and also it's like every menu is generally the same. Like you have the burger, you have the
Yeah.
salad. Like just get if all else fails, just get what you feel comfortable with. If you like a Caesar salad with salmon, get that. If you like the burger, get
Yes.
that. Like it just yeah, exactly. Food is very personal to everyone, and if you ask the waiter what they like, they could say, I love the steak. And you're like, I don't like red meat. Like, it just doesn't make sense to ask
Yes.
them.
It's so vague. And it's like, also, it's like, if you're just like, oh, what's good here? It's like, well, are you in the mood for it? Yeah, a salad, a soup, like seafood. Like, what are you in the mood for? But I feel like, especially, and Rowan, my little sister, you're probably not listening to this, but like I feel like this is you every time we go out to eat. Like she's just like, "Oh, what would you recommend?" It's like, well, they might have shit taste in food.
It's like, if you're going to ask that question, at least narrow it down for them. Like, I'm a big fan of, I'm going to get the white wine.
Yes.
So I would like to pair a seafood. What seafood do you recommend? Like, narrow it down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And like I've obviously asked those questions too. Like I remember this summer I was out for seafood and I was like, I like Pinot Grigio, or like I like this, like I'm feeling like a rosé to go with this seafood. Like which one would you suggest? Like that makes sense, but to just randomly be like, is anything good here? Like what do you recommend is just so fucking random. And if this is you, please stop.
Do better.
Like if you're resonating with this story, please do better.
Yeah, do better, please. Just for all of us decisive people, just do better.
Seriously, and like I can be indecisive too. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, should I get this like chicken wrap or should I get this like sandwich or whatever? And like I feel like you could ask some like those specific questions, but like when you just randomly ask like of a menu of like 30 things, like, oh, what's good on this menu? It's like, and I feel like every single time I've been with my sister and she's done this, the server will be like, oh, I really like the steak. And she'll be like, oh no, like I actually wanted a salad. Like, then why did you fucking ask?
Just lead it like exactly how you're leading this podcast. You've done such a fantastic job. I'm like, you don't even like, you just kind of lead the topics. Just lead them in the direction that you want it to go, you know?
100%. Oh my goodness. So if that's you, learn from this. I feel like, okay, Christy, I feel like you and I are canceled after this episode. Like the amount of Spencer support we gave and then just absolutely shitting on people that ask like a kind of reasonable question, we're gonna get canceled for sure.
Like, okay, we're turning you guys off now.
Yes,
Sorry. Well,
yes.
good thing you got to the end of the episode.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on. This was so much fun. Where can the listeners find you and anything else you want to plug?
So you can just find me on my podcast. It's at X Knows All on Instagram and on the Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. I don't have Twitter, but right now, like I said, Selena, Hillary, Call Her Daddy, Laguna Beach, Mary Kate and Ashley. Those are the episodes up so far. They're quick and sweet. I usually like keep them like under 45. So if you're on a quick commute to work, you can go ahead and listen to them. Thank you so much for having me on. This is so much fun. My first collab. I'm honored.
Oh my God. I love it. I'm so glad. And you do solo podcasts, but like if you ever need a guest,
I would I need to figure out how to do it.
I'm inviting myself on.
You're the first person. Mark my words, and if I'm not, you can find me and help me down. But I promise you will be my first guest once I figure out how to do it.
Thank you. Yes, I can help you with that part. Okay, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Bye.
And there you have it. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you to Christy for joining me on today's episode. I want to add like 2 things because Spencer has updated his TikTok. There's more out there. So he talks about some of the techniques that they use in reality TV to convey their storyline and to make us believe what is happening is real. So he talked about a few different techniques and I just wanted to like quickly cover those. So he talked about the Chiron, which is a like imposed name introducing a character. It's usually on like the left bottom of the screen. So he talks about in an episode, he's introduced as Spencer, Heidi's boyfriend. When they were casually dating, she was seeing other people, etc. But again, we see that and that just registers subconsciously, oh, that's Heidi's boyfriend. Oh, wow. all of this behavior that he's doing is super shady. When if it just said Spencer, like Heidi's fling, or nothing at all, and we knew the truth that they were casually dating and seeing other people, we wouldn't think it's shady that he was, like, for example, hanging out with Audrina. And then he talked about frankenbiting, which TBH, sometimes I do in the podcast, but basically it's where a person says something and then you cut a bunch of sentences together to make a new sentence, basically. It happens all the time in The Bachelor. If you're a Bachelor fan, I highly recommend Charlene Joint's blog, All the Pretty Pandas. She talks about frankenbiting a lot, and she actually pulls audio from The Bachelor episodes. I don't think she regularly posts anymore, but you could go through her archives about how they're frankenbitten, and you can tell because the person's voice, the cadence is weird, or the audio, one is louder and one is like not as loud, etc. So that is frankenbiting. You can also just like Google it if you want more information. The third thing is voiceovers. So he depicts a scene where Heidi and Lauren are shopping. Lauren says something and Heidi just says, "Yay," in return. And he's like, that was a voiceover because you didn't see Heidi's mouth move. You didn't see her mouth form those words. And then he said that once a week, the Hills cast would go to a recording studio, get a script from production of wild lines, which are, that's the technical term, I guess, for when you just say a bunch of stuff into a microphone, get it recorded, and then it's used for voiceovers, probably frankenbiting too. So, and he says it's like where they would set people up for failure or the takedown line or whatever. So I feel like people would be like, well, why didn't you know that? Well, if it's your first TV show and you're 20 years old and you don't know other people in the business, so you can't talk about it with other people, you're super new to this, the internet is not like it is now where I can Google frankenbiting and know, like if I were to go on a show like The Bachelor, I would know when they hand me a script and ask me to repeat lines, like I would know what that meant. But I just feel like, think about it, it's like 2006 or whatever, you're 20, you don't know people in the industry, and none of these conversations about how reality TV is made are happening. And the viewers aren't media literate like we are now, still not to the best we could be, but we're better, are they're just watching and like eating everything up like it's the truth. So yeah, I thought that that was really interesting. And then the last thing that he says is the cell phone conversations, and I feel like this has been talked about a lot in especially the early reality TV days, but where two characters would have a conversation with each other, but they're obviously they're in different locations, they're on their phone, but you can't see who they're talking to, and they have like fucking flip phones. And Spencer talks about two conversations in particular. The one that he is apologizing to Lauren before the wedding, and then this one where apparently he was talking to Audrina on the show, but apparently he was talking to Heidi. And basically, again, they just cut everything to make it sound like the conversation they want you to hear. So again, does this give him an out for all of his gross behavior? No, but I do think that we have to put all of his behaviors in this like sort of context, I guess. So yeah, I just wanted to update you all on that. That is it from me. Thank you again for listening. Thank you to Christy for being my guest, and thank you to Nate for editing today's episode. You can follow along with me on all socials at RTBP Podcast. We've got a lot going on nowadays, and I just hope that you are safe and healthy out there. As always, I'm your host Tori, and I am ready to be petty. See you soon. Bye.